IGN Game Scoop.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to IGN Game Scoop. I'm your host, Damon Hatfield. I'm joined today by Ryan McCaffrey,
Hello.
Dan Stapleton, Greg Miller.
Domo!
And we're talking about XCOM, more specifically, the Bureau, XCOM Declassified.
There you go.
As it's called now. Not as catchy a title as just XCOM.
But more appropriate.
Probably. This is the latest edition of XCOM that has gone through some changes.
The final iteration, we think,
Over the years.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, it's supposed to be out in August.
The version, yeah, that was announced in 2010.
Announced.
Right?
Who
And
knows
Ryan,
when it started development?
Ryan, you brought a prop here.
A visual aid.
I was one of the first people to get to see the original version of this game. I wrote this cover story back in, let's see, this was the June 2010 issue, which means I probably wrote it in about March.
Right. Ryan came to us from official
Magazine
Xbox
Lead
Magazine.
Times, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah,
So-
for the viewers, for the youngins at home, this is a magazine where people used to get video game information.
This is made of paper.
Oh man, they were advertising Alan Wake in there. Yeah. Looking at old video game magazines is so awesome. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's a snapshot of a very specific time,
is.
no matter where you are. And you're like, oh, I can't believe this game. And you're like, oh, I can't believe we used to be excited for this game. And it's totally
Dead to
shitty.
Rights, Retribution, whatever
I
happened.
don't know!
Anyway, Greg and I saw demos of the previous version when it was just XCOM, and more recently, you two have both seen the new version,
Yeah, we got to play.
the Bureau XCOM.
Yeah, we both played The Bureau,
Yeah.
the game that is coming out finally, and Dan wrote about it because I'm lazy.
Yeah.
So check that out on IGN right now.
But so now there's a lot of talk about, some people actually prefer the way the game looked in 2010.
Yeah, if you watch our, we had 2K Marin gave us a really cool opportunity. We went up there, we filmed a bunch of interviews, and they gave us the only publicly released footage of the original versions of the game. The 2010 version, that was that one, and then the 2011 version that was very Brothers in Armsy. It was still first person, but had all the sort of hand commands like, you go over there, rally up on me, all this stuff. And what was my train of thought? It's gone now. Am I recapping?
That's what the problem is with this XCOM game, is that it's too hard to keep it all on track. I remember when, speaking of old magazines, when we were doing Game Scoop as just an audio podcast, I remember we were talking about this thing when it first popped up, and then when they announced Enemy Unknown, and then I made a bet with Anthony Gallegos that Enemy Unknown would come out before the first-person shooter.
Yeah.
I won a free pizza out of the deal.
Oh, I remember where I was going with that was no, I don't.
Do you?
It's gone again.
Wait, no, it's like a passing bus.
Yeah.
You just catch part
No,
of the
I
billboard.
was gonna know our evolution of XCOM, evolution of the Bureau feature on IGN.
Yes.
That is where the only public footage of those original two versions are.
Okay.
There's a walk, but we got there.
Yeah.
But it gives you
Thanks for hanging with me.
It gives you an idea of how it's changed. And 2K Marin insists that from their point of view, it's been a very gradual change. They've been working on it every day and seen a very gradual change. But for people on the outside, everybody like us, it looks like a very dramatic change because the original version was much less conventional. This one had a bunch of mechanics in it that you would go out and investigate an alien incident, and you would find these angry black blobs jumping on people and possessing them and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you take photos.
So you couldn't kill them initially.
Right.
So rather than trying to fight them, you would just kind of observe and try and maybe gather some slime samples.
Oh, it's killing that girl.
Then you would, then you would take that back to your base and research it and find out, okay, here's how we kill these things. Turns out, fire. And then you would go back out next time you encountered them. Then you could fight them.
Yeah.
So that was a version, an idea that I had never seen in a game before.
And it was very quiet, very creepy. It reminded me a lot of BioShock 1, which was probably not a coincidence because development was largely actually happening at 2K Marin, but also at 2K's Australia arm, who also helped out Irrational with BioShock 1.
Right. So they're all very BioShock and influenced studios. Although I didn't really get the vibe that it was going to play like BioShock. Because BioShock,
I'm just talking about more of the tone of the game.
the look and feel, yes.
Yeah.
But it didn't look like it was going to play anything like BioShock, other than that they both had first-person shooter elements to them. So it's that perspective, and of course the art designers are going to be shared between them, so it's going to have a look that's similar. But the gameplay didn't look anything like it, and that's to me what's kind of disappointing about the Bureau. Is that not that I think it's going to be a bad game? It looks like a perfectly good game. If you like tactical combat from Brothers in Arms or Mass Effect, those series, and I do. I like that kind of combat. I'm sure it's going to be.
Why is there always a fly in here?
Yeah.
There was a fly in here last time.
Yeah, he was here at Up at Noon too.
It's the same fly.
What do we call him?
He's the fourth
You
panelist.
gotta give him a name.
Steven.
Is it the game?
Steven the Fly.
Let's call him Brundlefly. Is that
Brundlefly?
Is that?
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum.
Is it Brundlefly?
Oh, that was Grendelfly.
I can't remember the name.
Anyway,
Steven. His name is Steve the Fly.
Jeff Goldblum. We'll call him that.
Greg.
Anyway, what throws me about this one is that it feels so much safer than the original, because that was a bunch of new ideas that I'd never seen before, whereas this one is built on kind of a bedrock of third-person tactical shooters that we've all played before.
So it's maybe safer, but also, so I haven't seen the game, but from the footage I've seen, it looks more like an XCOM game. At least what you expect from XCOM.
It does and it doesn't. I mean, they've brought in the same, like the sectoids, which are the little gray aliens, and they brought in mutons, and the black blobs are now called silicoids, which is actually a reference to an original species of alien in XCOM UFO Defense, which is the 1994 version, that got cut from Enemy Unknown.
Right.
But reading the preview, they were still talking about real time, right? I mean, like,
it's real time combat, just like Mass Effect and Brothers in Arms. You pause it to give orders, but all the action happens in real time.
Okay. It's not turn-based.
yeah. Gotcha.
We liked the demo of
Nope.
XCOM that we saw back in 2010. Oh, I did.
No,
I thought you
this
did.
was one of those rare moments where I was totally the outlier of the entire IGN office. They showed us that demo in the old demo room, and everybody walked out, and Hillary was like, "That was awesome," and I was like, "That looked like another first-person shooter. That looked like another boring first-person shooter." They didn't. What I saw wasn't the, "Hey, we're gonna research you and do this." It was, "Oh my God, black blob!" It was over and over and over again, and then running around. And then there were these down moments where there wasn't anything happening. It was like kind of weird and walking around.
Yeah,
That's why I liked it, because
yeah.
it was, the pace was so slow, and it was sort of intentionally a very, very quiet game until, weird geometric shapes started filling the sky and attacking you, and it ebbed and flowed, I thought, very well in the demo, the original demo of the game.
Sure.
Yeah, I liked the setting of it. 1950s suburbia is
Yeah.
like where we saw. Now they bumped up to the 60s, right?
Yeah.
That's where it
Correct.
takes place.
62.
Yeah.
Their reasoning for that was that they said like people couldn't really distinguish the 40s from the 50s. Like if you see two games set in 40s and 50s, there's not a whole lot of difference. But if you go into the 60s, then things start to look very distinct.
So, after seeing the Bureau XCOM Declassified, do you guys both agree that you sort of preferred what it looked like back in 2010?
I mean, personally, yes. I think I would rather have played that game just because, again, it was a very different idea that I hadn't played before. Like if they had kept those mechanics and made it a third-person tactical shooter, I would be totally fine with that. I'm just disappointed to see that they have stripped out a bunch of the stuff that I was excited about in favor of making it a much more traditional linear shooter.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was very fascinated by the 2010 version, and then we haven't even talked about, there was another version in between the two versions we're talking about, the 2011 version, which kept first person, sort of kept the setting, but made it a lot, very, very Brothers in Armsy, where, as I said at the top of the show, it was, there's the various hand signals and squad orders, and I saw that one at E3 and went, okay, wow, they've changed this a lot, and I'm just not quite as excited. And now this ultimate, the Bureau version, which is just more or less tweaks off of the 2011 version, kind of the same way. Where I can't. It's not fair to the game, really. But Steve, do you have a comment? Or it's totally not fair to the game. But having seen the previous two, I can't get back to that level of hype I had for the original 2010 showing.
But Greg, are you interested in?
Yeah,
what
I
new
saw
game is?
today and what I read today, I thought it sounded cool. It looked cool. It looks like they're wearing proton packs, so I'm a big fan of that. Yeah. But I mean, I liked Enemy Unknown so much, and I liked that visual style, and so that first-person shooters, I feel like you lose telling a story or who these characters are in a certain way as far as who you are. So I really liked the fact that it will be third person, and you will be running around doing these different things.
Yeah.
I find it interesting. I mean, I know there are so many other larger business forces at work, but you could, from an outsider, top-down perspective, you could kind of look at it and go, well, gee, if they had just made that 2010 version and maybe called it something else, they could have had it out by, let's say, 2012, and been working on, Bureau 2 or whatever it would have been called for next gen for next year. Instead, they're, how many years into development and only just now about to get this out. But I know there are again, mightier business forces at work than that. That's
I mean, it's
a gross oversimplification.
It's super easy for pretty much anybody to sit down and say, oh, they should take more risks.
Right.
And I wish they would, but then you think about, hey, they are putting millions of dollars and years of their lives into making a game that if it fails, they're all out of jobs. They lose their houses.
Very true. Very true.
So like that's why they don't take a lot of risks.
How did the last XCOM do? How did Enemy Unknown do?
Yeah, it did well.
I think better than expected.
Right?
Even.
Yeah.
It was both. It was critically received well too.
Yeah.
Also, I was wondering. They announced XCOM in 2010. Who knows when they started developing it? At what point did they start working on Enemy Unknown?
They started working
that was
on
a separate.
Yeah, that was a 4-year development, I think, 4 or 5
4
years.
years?
Yes.
That's why it's so good.
Yeah,
I like that one.
they spent a long time on and iterating on that. They just didn't announce it until the year it came out, which is I mean, like if they hadn't announced the Bureau, what ended up being the Bureau, until the year it came out, we wouldn't be having this conversation at all.
We should be thankful too, because 2K is a publisher that has an established track record of giving its developers lots of chances and pretty much as much time as they want to work on games. I mean, Mafia 2 was in development for like 7 years. And this is a game, the Bureau is a game where, under another publisher's watch, probably would have been canceled like when they first maybe tried to switch off. If the 2010 version wasn't working, they would have said, okay, canceled, and then maybe still laid off all those people or scattered them to other projects. So we are kind of lucky to be getting the Bureau at all.
Mm-hmm.
So
It has a release date, right?
August 20th.
August 20th. I guess we'll find out then how the latest XCOM version ended up. But thanks, guys. Stay tuned for lots more from IGN Gamescoop very soon.